SideQuest is a product of Colin's Last Stand, an eclectic collection of podcasts and video series supported by fans on Patreon at patreon.com/colinslaststand. If you want to support the show, as well as gain some cool perks, consider pledging a monthly amount that makes the most sense for you. Your support not only helps SideQuest continue into the future, but also supports the production of Sacred Symbols, the all-new PlayStation podcast, Knockback, the retro-themed podcast, and Fireside Chats, the interview series, all under the CLS umbrella. Supporting Colin's Last Stand on Patreon can grant you early, ad-free access to all of the podcasts, exclusive shows, the ability to vote on show topics, and much more. But most importantly, it allows this brand of totally independent content to thrive. Thank you for your love, kindness, and support. I truly appreciate it. Now, on to the show. While it's hard to say exactly why I started playing video games as a child, it's safe to say that Mega Man, and Mega Man 2 and 3 in particular, are the reasons why I became enamored with gaming starting at a very young age. The so-called classic Mega Man franchise instilled in me a deep, undying love of difficult side-scrollers, and synced up nicely with my, at the time, undefined, youthful love of camp and melodrama. I was obsessed with G.I. Joe in the late 80s and early 90s too, after all. So anything that developer/publisher Capcom releases from the mainline Mega Man franchise immediately gets my attention. Mega Man 11 is the most recent entry into the series, a series that began on Famicom and later NES way back in 1987, and naturally, I immediately gravitated towards it. As the first numbered Mega Man game developed by Capcom itself in literally 22 years, 1996's Mega Man 8 was the last one Capcom created internally, I was excited to see if the company that helped define my childhood understood today what Mega Man is all about, just like developer Innicreate so clearly understood Mega Man with 2008's Mega Man 9 and 2010's Mega Man 10. I'm sad to report back that, while Mega Man 11 tries to drag the Blue Bomber out of the 8-bit era, and is certainly enjoyable in its own right, it's nowhere near as good as Mega Man 9 and 10, not to mention the 6 classic Mega Man games on NES. Indeed, it suffers from trying to do too much, instead of simply adhering to the formula that makes these games so good to begin with. I'm not totally down on Mega Man 11 per se, but I can tell you that I had the game for several weeks before it came out, and expected to be glued to it for a solid month, just like I was with Mega Man 10 back in 2010. But no matter how much I tried to truly love Mega Man 11, I just couldn't. I didn't really miss it when I wasn't playing it, and there were times when I was playing it when I kind of felt like doing something else instead. While some people will pick on the 2.5D graphical aesthetic or uninspired soundtrack as the main culprits, I'm left puzzled by the gameplay itself. Mega Man's perceived simplicity is what in turn makes it so deep and difficult, because there's really only so much you can do to survive. But Mega Man 11 messes too radically with what Mega Man truly is, and it's a demonstrably worse product as a result. Is it difficult? Yes, of course it is, and that's awesome, but I think it's difficult for the wrong reasons. If there's something Mega Man 11 does which I absolutely positively adore, it's that it tells an actual story. There's more plot, more background, more nuance, and more personality in Mega Man 11's introductory cutscenes alone than there are in the 10 previous Mega Man games combined, stem to stern, and that's really awesome, because classic Mega Man has always begged to be fleshed out from this perspective. It's especially cool that Mega Man 11 explores the relationship between Dr. Light, known best as Mega Man's creator, and Dr. Wily, Light's once partner and longtime nemesis and rival. Actually seeing them as 20-something-year-old scientists, creating, competing, and ultimately fracturing adds real weight to the story, and gives their various conflicts actual historical oomph. And while the voice acting leaves much to be desired, a Mega Man tradition at this point, I'm so pleased that Capcom decided to finally give us some much-needed texture to surround the events of these 11 games. The whole gang is in Mega Man 11, from Mega Man's sister Roll to the lab assistant Otto to the robotic bird Beat and his flip-top companion Eddie, and more. Mega Man 11 is a who's who of the series, and no noticeable good guy is truly left behind, which is cool. The currency system and storefront first introduced in 1995's Mega Man 7 on SNES is here, as is Rush, introduced in premise in Mega Man 2 and later as an actual character in Mega Man 3. It isn't 1990, so there isn't a password system, but a save system that can be employed at virtually any time, and there are multiple difficulty settings to explore at your leisure, as well as full trophy and achievement sets that will be hard for even the most seasoned Mega Man veterans to platinum or 100% respectively. And if that's not enough, there are galleries to explore and an entire meaty challenge mode to jump into, though the latter I didn't feel like messing with a great deal. As you may recall, each Mega Man game added just a little something to the formula to evolve it. Mega Man 2 added the 3 items that in Mega Man 3 would turn into Rush, Mega Man's robotic dog. Mega Man 3 also added the slide. Mega Man 4 added the ability to power up your Buster, as well as some hidden items that you didn't have to find to complete the game. Mega Man 5 inserted collectible tokens for the first time that, if all collected, would give you access to Mega Man's avian companion Beat, while Mega Man 6 added fake boss battles and non-linear stages, along with a new rush function that fuses the dog to Mega Man himself. It's that latter point that I want to focus on, because Mega Man 11's so-called double gear system, its radical new gameplay device, is perhaps most akin to those power-ups. By pressing the left or right triggers, Mega Man can slow down time or shoot powerful shots, but he can only do so for a limited time. If you leave either power engaged for too long, there's a required cooldown that happens, at which time you're essentially barred from using those powers. It's all about balancing their effects with their cooldowns, and in premise, it's a nice system, but in reality, it changes the entire way Mega Man 11 plays. It changes the entire rhythm of how Mega Man 11 would otherwise feel. It changes design philosophies on a stage-by-stage basis and in boss battles alike. It's one of those ideas that's super clever on paper, but ill-conceived in action. In a game that's all about garnering weaponry from downed enemies, I'm confounded why Capcom thought it was a good idea to immediately give Mega Man his most important powers, make them infinitely usable, and then subtly lay the foundation for a cop-out you'll no doubt hear from plenty of Mega Man 11 defenders. You don't have to use those powers. Except you kinda do, because the entire experience is designed around them. While it was cool to start out with Rush Coil in your arsenal, something first pioneered in Mega Man 3, and while it's awesome that you can simply use the face buttons to instantly call Rush Coil and later Rush Jet without having to scroll through menus, it was far less cool to have powers at your disposal immediately. It felt very un-Mega Man. Being able to slow down time no matter what, no matter where you are, so long as you watch your gauge, interrupted gameplay to such an extent that I truly wish this new system wasn't in the game at all. I found the powered up part of the double gear system almost entirely useless, making matters worse, because I relied pretty much entirely on the slowdown which would have been far cooler as a boss power, a kind of riff on the time stopper employed by the likes of Flashman, Brightman, and Centaur Man in the past. But not everything is new and unusual. It's clear that Capcom's designers and artists delved deep into the catalog of old Mega Man enemies, reviving many of them, including many obscure ones, for Mega Man 11. It was cool as hell to see the circular red guns from Ringman stage in Mega Man 4, or the bubble bats from Woodman stage in Mega Man 2, or the tankish floating foes from Mega Man 5. Fuse Man stage seemed like a major riff on Sparkman stage from Mega Man 3, right on down to some enemies, while I think my favorite enemies of all were the AT-ST-like walkers, piloted by Sniper Joes, pulled right out of Flashman stage and elsewhere in Mega Man 2. For as much as they changed, it's cool that Capcom opted to put so many touchstones into the game for old school fans like me. One touchstone I wish they included though was the extended endgames that were introduced in Mega Man 3 and extended through Mega Man 6. Like Mega Man 9 and 10, the game ends too soon with too little ultimate challenge and a Wily Castle that could have been so much more. I miss the days of something unexpected happening, of some twist, like fighting the Robot Masters from Mega Man 2 in Mega Man 3, or realizing Dr. Cossack isn't the bad guy in Mega Man 4, or fighting the fake Proto Man in Mega Man 5, and so on. There's no pop or surprise like that here, which is a bummer, though you'll fight a very familiar boss en route to Wily himself. I'll just leave that there. Foundationally, Mega Man 11 is very much Mega Man. At the outset, you'll be given 8 stages to choose from, and you can tackle them in any order you'd like, trying to discover which boss is weak to which other boss's weapons. It's classic Mega Man in this regard, and it's always a blast to try to figure out the calculus at the center of the boss order. Though with the double gear system, you can use the arm cannon with more devastating effect than in previous games, which kinda diminishes the necessity of figuring out that order. Apart from the double gear system, you'll find that gameplay adheres most closely to Mega Man 4. By that I mean that Mega Man can both slide and use his powered up shot. It's a nice step forward, especially considering Inti-Create's confounding decision to revolve both Mega Man 9 and 10 around the gameplay stylings of Mega Man 2, slideless and power shotless, which seemed like a move backwards both at the time and now. And there are truly moments of gameplay bliss to be had here. There are cleverly designed sections of stages, and almost every stage has a mini-boss, which is awesome because mini-bosses, while common beginning in the latter NES Mega Man titles, were never this many in number. While the 8 core stages themselves are a little inconsistent in terms of length and difficulty, some are far easier than others, introducing a sort of imbalance perhaps not seen since Mega Man 2, each has its own unique, distinct personality, graphical flair, color palette, and combination of enemies, and each, as always, is manned at the end by a devious Robot Master. Robot Masters that, once slain, will surrender their weapons to Mega Man. In this way, Mega Man 11 is, well, very traditional, and again, while it's easy to beat up on its 2.5D look, which could often come off as cheap and lacking inspiration, I think they did a nice job with it. This is certainly not Mighty Number 9. The array of Robot Masters are attractive and interesting enough, though I continue to wonder if I just don't like the look of any Mega Man game as much as I do the 8-bit offerings. Mega Man 7 and 8 both had lackluster Robot Master rosters to me, and I don't know if that's actually so, or if it's because I have such an aversion to seeing Mega Man outside of its traditional look. Still, Fuse Man has a pretty cool design, as does Bounce Man, though I'm confused why they didn't stick with his Japanese name, Rubber Man. Impact Man seems a bit inspired by Guts Man, while Block Man is certainly a Stone Man facsimile for all of you Mega Man 5 fans out there. My favorite Robot Master is undoubtedly Tundra Man though, an elegant yet powerful ice-wielding Robot Master who fights by figure skating. For real, it's a pretty cool battle. All of the boss battles are certainly unique, though again, the cadence of fighting each of them is sometimes severely broken up by that damn double gear system. When you beat the Robot Masters, you get their weapons, as always, but when Mega Man opts to use their weapons, he turns into a version of them instead of simply changing color. I'm sorry guys, I absolutely hated this. It'll be a minor gripe for some, and perhaps not even a gripe at all for many others, but for me, I was kinda hung up on this. I just don't care for this design philosophy at all. I also didn't like how the Robot Masters played into the story, which I won't go too deeply into here so as to not spoil anything, but their over-inclusion kinda sorta diminished the potential ominousness of Wily's new plot. Indeed, the whole thing seemed like a rehash of the original Mega Man 1 story, from this particular perspective, though again, the light Wily plot is so cool and so welcome. I guess it sounds like I'm down on Mega Man 11, and I guess I kinda am, but it's all relative. Taken alone as just another side-scroller, Mega Man 11 is fun in its own right, clever in some of its design decisions, and gruelingly difficult, which is awesome because I felt that Mega Man 9 and 10 just weren't hard enough. Mega Man 11 at times almost comes off as too hard, which, if you like difficult games as much as I do, isn't so much a complaint as it is a persistent challenge to overcome. But we can't assess Mega Man 11 in a vacuum, because it hails from one of the most storied side-scrolling series ever made, and it simply doesn't add up in comparison. At the end of the day, Mega Man 11 tries to reinvent the wheel a bit, except no one asked Capcom to reinvent the wheel at all. We like the wheel exactly as it is, exactly as Indie Creates proved beginning a decade ago. Those games were so well received and so respected because they were completely true to what they are, and while I respect the desire to change things up and try something new, that's frankly what Mega Man's many spin-offs, from X and Legends to Star Force and Battle Network, are for. That we got Mega Man 11 at all is pretty damn cool, and I'm stoked about that. But it's clear that Capcom may not understand, after all, exactly what makes classic Blue Bomber tick, and that to me is concerning. So do I recommend this game? Well, I do actually, because it's a competent side-scroller and a game that will be especially intriguing to Mega Man fans who simply must play it. But when compared to the core series' storied history and the heights it has achieved time and time again, I'm sad to say that Mega Man 11 is a letdown. It just is. And well, it is what it is, for better or for worse. Let's just hope Capcom makes a Mega Man 12 in the future that can ameliorate some of these issues, work out the kinks, and get us back on track. Because some things simply don't need to be trifled with too deeply, and the core mechanics that fuel Mega Man should forever be in stasis, tapped when needed, but never altered.